In a world racing toward automation, where AI is taking over tasks like writing reports, analyzing data, and even giving feedback, what's left for us humans? Welcome to Irreplaceable, the podcast that explores what only people can do and why those things still matter more than ever. Every episode, we'll talk with business leaders, thought leaders, and change makers who are proving that human qualities like judgment, curiosity, and empathy aren't soft skills, they're strategic and competitive advantages. We'll explore questions like, can intuition still drive great leadership? How do we build trust in an AI-powered world? And what happens to accountability when no one's behind the algorithm? This podcast isn't about resisting the future. It's about designing it with humans at the center. Because in the race to win in the marketplace, some things just can't be replaced. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Irreplaceable, the podcast that focuses on the human traits that organizations need to win in the age of AI. So today's topic is focused on the cultural and mindset shifts that are needed for organizations to take full advantage of AI. And my guests today are Alexandra Phillips and Marcelo Godinho. Alex, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, Alex Phillips, I CIO in the life sciences world for the last probably 12 years. And through that time, I've experienced a lot of the transformation we're about to talk about. So I'm excited to talk more about, in particular, what that means from a people perspective and a human capital perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I'm glad you're here. You are truly a technology business leader, as I've known you for the last, how many years?
A long time.
Yeah. Marcelo.
Thank you, Tony, for having me. It's a really big pleasure to be here with you and Alex. Yeah, as you know, after 18 years at UI, I have shifted toward technology. As an investor and partner of Sapiens Software, we help companies use tech to fortify their teams and culture. And outside the tech world, I stay connected with a lifelong passion, community service, serving two nonprofits in the Philly area in a board member capacity. That's a way for me to stay grounded in purpose while looking ahead. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. So, all right, let's get right into it then. So the first question is, I'm actually going to start with you, Marcelo. What are some of those organizational culture aspects and or mindset shifts that are needed as organizations begin to incorporate AI into their organizations?
It's a good question, Tony. From my perspective, I think that when it comes to innovation, especially that one powered by technology, I think that no organization can truly thrive without two foundational elements. First one to me is a growth mindset, and the second one is a culture that encourages leaders to take risks. These are not just like nice to have thing. They are essential to me. And without them, even the most advanced technologies won't lead to meaningful or sustainable evolution or transformation, whatever you want to call. Tech may be the engine, but mindset and culture are the anchors to make everything happen in the right way.
Interesting. Alex, as a CIO, what's your vantage point on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Marcelo said. And I think I would add, it's creating a culture of adoption, and it's reinforcing with your team members and your employees that this is about how we can improve collectively. And so technology is one aspect of that, but as employees, as individuals, right? How do we grow through that? And opening your mind up to the adoption of the technology, right? And the opportunities it brings, and how you can pivot, right? From a skills and experience perspective. So I think there's been a lot of focus on what AI means for jobs, right? And
yes.
And I think it's important to highlight, if you look at sort of the evolution of AI relative to thinking about machine learning to RPA, robotic process automation, integration, which are all forms of new automation. And AI is just continuing that, right? And through that, we've looked at how we can continue to grow our employees and develop them so that they become complementary to that technology, right? Not not eliminated because of that technology.
Yeah. I think about what you're describing. Innovation brings risk, and risk tolerance brings failure. Is tolerance for failure or a willingness to accept it part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think organizations need to understand that they and their employees learn the most when they fail, actually. We all love success, right? And easy to celebrate success. I think, I think as you put it, embracing that failure and, using it to learn and improve, helps you. I think if you have success after success after success, when you hit failure, can get a little harder, right, to punch through it. Whereas if you
Right.
experience it, right, and you take that as a positive learning, I think that makes you much stronger, much more resilient, right, down the road.
Yeah, sort of a paradox there, which you mentioned that there's a real concern amongst employees that artificial intelligence in many forms, agentic, generative AI, will take their jobs. And therefore, it might make them more risk averse. Like, I want to avoid making a mistake because that could cost me my job to the machine. But yet we think that embracing failure has to be an important part of how we operate in this new world. I wonder, as a leader, how might I think about supporting embracing failure in the organization?
I do, and maybe I can take that.
Yeah.
I think that Tony point, right? So I think that there is always this paradox in terms of short term, long term, and how you make these things work together. So I think that leaders and as well as employees, they should embrace AI or technology as an opportunity to really evolve how work gets done, right? I think that one thing that can really put people in the defensive mode is like having them thinking much about what we saw in the past when new technologies came to the workplace, like RPA, robotics, process automation, right? We saw kind of and we are seeing some headlines like, well, technology will replace humans, millions of jobs will disappear, bunch of data out there, and blah blah blah. But this is a kind of narrative that just creates noisy and confusion. If we had that thing being spread out, it just distracts leaders and people, employees and business from the real opportunity, which is use technology to reimagine the work. And the other thing is, I strongly believe and see many organizations out there, technology should never be approached as a tool of cutting heads, right? It's really a chance to engage the workforce, explore the art of the possible, and empower people to do the extraordinary, having the flexibility to test new things. If something is not working, go test another thing and keep going. It's not a space for you to keep looking to the past and say, we are not going to do this because that's something that not happened. We didn't have success in the past while adopting. So everything, if you go with the mode that we have to transform today and deliver results today, not having the space to create and take risks, that's a big risk for any innovation. So people will not embrace the opportunity to evolve and really reimagine the workplace.
Alex, as a CIO, I know that you're constantly dealing with different investment requests, right? Capital intensive or otherwise. And one of the things I know organizations are facing is this sort of movement towards, we need to be in AI and we need to be in it quickly. New York Times had a piece on this just a couple of days ago, is while the investments have been gigantic, the productivity gains have been modest. So Alex, as a leader who has to govern a large amount of spend, and each dollar has an opportunity cost, how do you think about AI as a technology investment? Do you think of it as disruptive, bet the farm, or do you think of it as, let's think of it more of like just as another powerful automation tool, or something in between?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tony. And I do think it sort of falls somewhere in between. I certainly believe, and I think we are seeing it as being a truly disruptive technology. It really is going to be a differentiator. But you made the point, and it's a good one, that when you dig into that and you start to look at how organizations are using AI today across the spectrum of industry and size, you haven't seen necessarily the applications of AI that have been sold to us, right? You see the big headlines of the investments that organizations like Meta and OpenAI and are making, and betting the farm on this. And I think they are looking down the road, but I would look at this like I would look at any investment that I would make within the organization is what value proposition does this bring to me and my organization, right? Is it productivity gains? Is it efficiency gains? Is it truly a differentiator for me within my product set or the services I offer as an organization and how I can intertwine that to offer services to my customers? So do I understand that? Have I taken the time, like I would do with any other big, large technology investment, have I taken the time to really understand the use case within my organization? Do I understand and can I measure the return of investment that will bring to me? And can I measure that and can I track that? And then taking it through the process of either a proof of concept or pilot and breaking that down into sort of manageable chunks, right? And see what kind of value I get, learn from that, and then pivot as I need to. And there are a lot of different tools out there, depending on what it is you want to do, right? Whether you're talking about generative AI or agentic AI, do you want open source? Do you need security? And how do you think about those sorts of things? A lot of organizations, I don't think, have taken the time to really sit down and understand that. And so I think you're starting to see, as we're learning from some of these early adopters, right, that you do have to take this through that sort of process. So reaffirming those basic business skills that we have and understanding and applying those, and then working our way through that. I think AI has a ton of potential, but I think a lot of organizations need to take measured steps to understand what that's going to mean.
I was talking to a former colleague of mine who, like Marcelo, spent a lot of time in a professional services executive capacity, and he's working with a big client now who is going through a investment cycle with AI. And his observation is that if AI's potential is realized, everybody in the organization is going to essentially feel like they got a promotion, meaning they're going to be doing a higher level of work than they were in the past. What are some of those sort of human capabilities that you think are going to have to be kind of increased or muscle built in organizations if AI does get that foothold?
I think that the first capability is less skill to me is critical thinking. I think that it's, and connecting to what Alex just mentioned about the basics, ROI, those type of things. So it's very common to see business leaders energized by technology. But I would say far fewer are deeply engaged in understanding the actual problem that they need to solve, right? So what is the use case? They are under constant pressure and always racing against the clock. So, and when that things happens, it's very common to see they asking for benchmark data. So what my competitor is doing, and I should be doing just as well. You know, benchmarks can offer useful insights, as we know, but there's not a substitute for critical thinking, right? And asking the right questions, making sure that you have a business case in front of you, going into chunks, like Alex mentioned, right? So, and driving really meaningful interventions that will be sustainable. Otherwise, it's just another new technology that you're going to bring to the workplace and you're not transforming nothing. So I think that when it comes to critical thinking, Tony, I think that's basic questions that every leader should ask. Is there a process issue that needs fixing? And I know that lots of companies out there, they hate to address that thing because that's the heavy lift of every transformation, right? Skills gap that must be addressed. Do I have the right skills for the future state? And how I close the gap between the current state to the future state? That's another challenge. Lots of companies are talking about massive transformation, but few of them are really transforming and equipping people with the skills and capabilities that they need to for the future. It costs money. Maybe the short-term decision is let's hire someone else new in the market, but that's also risks associated to that kind of a mindset or decision. And the third thing to me is when it comes to capabilities is the question that is, do I need to have all these new capabilities in-house, or it brings up an opportunity to think about strategic alliance and partnerships. And by teaming with someone else out there, I can build that muscle that will help me achieve not necessarily faster, but in a more sustainable way, what we wanted to achieve for the future. So that's a type of kind of the way how I see in terms of building capabilities and muscles to whenever you go to a transformation, and even with AI, Tony.
Fascinating. Alex.
Yeah, no, those are terrific points. And I think just to build off of what Marcelo was saying, those strategic partnerships, right? Again, kind of going back, you look at AI, there's so many technologies out there. So which one do you pick? Which one do you partner with? My approach has been to talk to some of the vendors who are more platform vendors who have access to all of the various open AI technologies. They bring that expertise. Marcello's point, they bring the expertise in. I don't have to figure out which one I have to build internally, right? Yet what I can focus in on is what's my use case? What is the business value this brings to me? And then leverage those strategic partnerships to bring the skills in until I understand and can prove out what I think, where I think that value proposition is. And then how do I then begin to build that skill internally? I think the one other thing I would call out to in terms of that sort of shift that we need to begin to see in skills within our teams, particularly coming from my perspective on the technology end as a CIO, is having people in the organization across, particularly my function, have a customer focus. It isn't just that, it's not the technology. Yes, we are technology people, and of course we love that, but approaching every interaction with our business, every interaction to use case of what does the customer want? What would help the customer? Do we understand that? Have we talked to them? And a lot of technologists or IT folks don't think that's their job. It absolutely is their job, particularly when you're talking about something like AI, right? Is do you understand what the customer wants? Particularly as you think about extending AI into your products or services, but even internally in terms of how we get better, how does our customer want to service them better? So really, customer focus has always been something we've talked about. I think this just continues to really reinforce that even more, because I think in AI, the use cases are absolutely critical. And they've been, I think, the tripping point for a lot of organizations to date.
Interesting. Yeah. I think about customer, you have internal customers and you have external customers. We have, I think, a need for thoughtful, deep thinking around the change implications of artificial intelligence in organizations. But Marcelo, you raised the sort of paradox of the fact that most business leaders are in a hurry. So they show me the money. I get it, but show me the money. So is there any advice you could share as far as how to kind of bring those two things less in conflict?
So, Tony, I think that, transformation has become a kind of a type of a buzzword. And I think that when it's not anchored in meaning, it just breeds anxiety and fatigue across the organization. I think that a couple of things that I see to your question. So the first one is the need of crafting a compelling vision, right? So without a clear destination, even the most ambitious change will lose momentum. So this is the first thing, craft a compelling vision. The second thing to me is engage key influencers early, right? Make the conversation meaningful and empower them to really be the catalyst of change and not the passive recipients of the message. And the third thing to me is lead with transparency. Put transparency as a non-negotiable value. People follow leaders they trust. Simple like that. And I feed that to one of the comments that Alex provided earlier about ROI and metrics, and really set realistic metrics, right? So you can't transform today and show the money tomorrow, right? Sustainable change takes time. That's the reality. And my last piece is, with that said, Tony, is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It demands patience, the culture of taking risks, and on top of everything, consistent leadership. That's it.
Yeah, I know. I agree with everything Marcelo said. I think the other thing I think I'd focus in on is breaking it down into manageable pieces, right? And Marcelo's right. When you talk about transformation, right, it's a big word and it typically means big change, right? And I think when you approach it from the perspective of, yes, our North Star, our end goal is to be here, but let's talk about, how we can get there incrementally, right? And starting to get some of those quick wins, starting to build the knowledge, build internally some experience in this, learn from that, fail fast, and then go to the next opportunity. And as you build, you'll get faster, right? So getting to that quicker happens, but you don't lose sight of the steps that make, the proper steps that you need to take to keep that discipline. So I think that's the other piece, right? Is everyone wants to talk in terms of big transformation, and we're going to do this, and isn't it great? But I think every mountain you climb, steps one step at a time, right? So when you're looking at the peak, it seems like it's really far away, right? But if you can break this down into sort of those manageable pieces and celebrate those wins with your team, right? And then build off of that. And then that journey doesn't seem so daunting.
Excellent. I'll leave us with, I'm going to ask you a pulse question. So Alex, you've been a chief information officer for a number of years across different industries, and you've seen a lot of things come and go. Marcelo, you've worked, when you're at EY, you work with large clients on big things, and you're now in a role where you're help lead a software company that's going to add tremendous value in the HRIS space. So are you as leaders optimistic about the adoption of AI whether it be your organization or others that you work with, or are you pessimistic, or a little bit of both?
I'll say I'm cautiously optimistic. I think, and we have seen a lot of evolution of technology, and AI is, as I said before, is just an extension of others that have come in its past, right? From the machine learning to RPA to integrative middleware technologies, it's all been an evolution that's gotten us here. I do feel that AI has the potential to be differentiating for a lot of organizations. I put the cautious in front of it for all of the reasons I think we just spoke of, which is it's very easy to get caught up in the hype of this technology. It certainly gets a lot of airtime, but it does highlight how transformative it can be. I think organizations have to remain disciplined, and everything we talked about today. Disciplined and do not lose sight of the value of your people and what they bring to the table, because they will be the ones that will allow AI to be transformative for you. If you take them out of the equation, then AI just becomes another tool. And so those are the things I would focus on.
I'm on the same boat of Alex. I think that I see many organizations and leaders really excited with technology. And I think that there is a big mistake starting a transformation with technology at the center. The other way, I see few organizations really willing to spend time in terms of building the foundations with processes, culture, and people. So these are the things that you need to spend time on, because if it should be only about technology, that should be easy. That shouldn't be a problem, right? As long as you have the money to spend. But that's it. So I think that every organization, if you have the right mindset and leaders really willing to spend time in terms of driving the right interventions when it comes to people, culture, and process, that's the right thing to do. Then technology will come and will as an enabler to make everything else happen.
Well, thank you both. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I've learned a lot, and more to come, right? Every day is different. So thanks again, both Marcelo, Alexandra. Really appreciate your time and most importantly, your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Marcelo.